the two last ones. Supreme Court ruling against affirmative action.
Julia, what do we know at this point?
Well, that's right. Affirmative action has been blocked both for private and public colleges. This is in the UNC case and in the Harvard case. We thought there may be a split where they might say that it's unconstitutional for public universities taking public money, but perhaps not for private. But they've said in both cases, college admissions cannot consider race as they try to diversify their student bodies. Now, this is overturning a 2003 opinion by then Justice Sotomayor, who said at that time, we hope in 25 years we won't have to look at race as a consideration in college, but that's just not the makeup of our country right now. Well, it's been 20 years, and these justices have said that the court, according to this opinion today, that they think that race should no longer be a consideration as colleges try to diversify. Going back to oral arguments, we heard then from Chief Justice Roberts saying, look, he basically saw it as being more racist in violation of Title 14 to look at race in considering who should be admitted to college. Harvard tried to argue this is just like trying to get an oboe player on our orchestra. We would look out for oboe players just like we would look at race and trying to diversify our student body. At the time, Chief Justice Roberts said no, because we didn't have a civil war over oboe players and we did over race. This will, of course, have historic impacts going forward as colleges try to diversify their student bodies, looking at other things like geographical factors, poverty, any adversity that students have overcome, but they can no longer look at race. It's something that's already happening in 8 states across the country. For example, in the public education system, the public system in California, they cannot look at race there. A lot of colleges have said it's been increasingly hard to keep their student bodies racially diverse. Hard to underestimate how big of a decision this is coming from the Supreme Court today. It may not be surprising given the composition of the court, but it will have long and lasting impacts on how colleges around the country diversify their student bodies without looking at race as a factor.
Somebody else go first, because my view is probably going to be a little controversial.
I think mine is too.
Mine is too.
I'll say this: affirmative action never benefited Black people. I don't know where this whole argument came from that it was just benefiting Black people, because it hasn't. If you look at affirmative action, it's only basically benefited white women. That's who it has benefited. It hasn't benefited me. So to see it gone, okay, oh well. This court just makes up rules. They just make them up. If they don't like it, we'll just make up some rule. How do you say, well, we didn't have a thing for OB players, we fought over race? Yes, and they're trying to diversify their campuses. So you're okay with it. This is just so frustrating to me that one of the chief justices, one of the few that benefited from affirmative action, rules against affirmative action. Really? So it's okay when it was used for you, but now that you've gotten where you've gotten, you're going to just take that ladder away and just make everybody work. But again, affirmative action never benefited Black people. So to see it gone, I never knew it was here in the first place. I mean, I heard about it. I mean, of course I heard about it, but I mean, if you look at, and I'm making a whole bunch of points and they're not making sense, but if you look at the amount of Black students in those colleges, it's like 10%, maybe 10% is high. And
between 4 and 7.
Like 10 was way too high, thank you. So you're not doing a good job of making your campuses diversified in the first place. And the fact that they had another student, and this is what people look out for, and here comes the controversial part. They used one student of color to say that another was being favored. And if you look at how that all set up, that's the concerning part to me, is they didn't bring it in the, hey, let's get this white person and say discrimination. No, we're going to get another person of color, have them go up against another person of color. And so what I hope doesn't happen is that you have just black people enraged against the Asian community because we don't need that at all. But my larger point is what makes the courts think that somebody isn't going to take this too far? What if I start a school and I say, you know what? If you don't have type 1 diabetes, you can't come to this school. Do I get to say, and then there's somebody who has type 2 say, well, she's discriminating against people with type 2? They're setting these things up, one, because they're racist, two, because the Federalist Society has done a really good job of packing the courts. Three, why don't we have an odd number of justices anyway? And four, we need term limits on these Supreme Court justices. Why are they in there for a lifetime? I don't even understand that. I'm not going to say we should get to vote for them, but they should have a term limit, at least 10 years. Be like, okay, your 10 years is up, go. And those are all my scattered points.
Go ahead,
So,
you already know
all right. So
what my thoughts was.
couple quick things. So this particular challenge, it seems like it came out of nowhere, but it has been presented over and over and over again since affirmative action even became a thing in around 1968, 1970. So, and the ones pushing against it for at least 30 of those years has been members of the Asian community. So first, I want to make sure you don't take your eye off the fact that the Asian community is not operating in a friendly position to us. See, basically, the way affirmative action was kind of happening, let's say hypothetically, there were 10 seats at the table to go to Harvard, and white people get 6 of those seats. So there's only 4 up for grabs. So then 2 of those seats are automatically going to go to those who are legacy. So now you've accounted for 8 of the seats, which kind of means 8 of the seats are kind of held by white people anyway. But there's 2 seats left, and those 2 seats were basically apportioned out for restorative justice purposes under affirmative action so that African Americans would have the ability to compete for those 2 slots. You still have to be abundantly qualified to go to the school, right? But these 2 seats were set aside out of restorative justice. But the Asian community, who has always had to fight with white people to get positions in these things, saw, well, here's 2 seats, and we can't even compete for these 2 seats, and we're being kind of elbowed out because the reality is white America doesn't want them in their schools to too much of a degree because the Asian community, and it's specific Asian communities, okay, there's Japanese, Chinese, and like maybe 2 other nations that overwhelmingly represent those who are getting in these spots. The vast majority of the Asian community is not being favored in these positions, these things. They just kind of get lumped in because it's easier to say Asian. But they've been fighting to take away the 2 seats that we have. So they're not operating as our friends here, but they are trying to operate out of their self-interest, which you can't really blame them for when we talk about politics. So they're trying to fight the way that they can fight. We were the easier one to pick off. And so that's what happened, in there. One of the things, Tracy, you touched on when you said that it never benefited black people. I have to disagree. And the reason why is because before affirmative action, right? So after they murdered Dr. King, got voting rights legislation, blah, 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 we were still all in service roles. We didn't have very many opportunities. Affirmative action, in a way, kind of cracked the door. And when they put that stuff in there, now you had the explosion of the black middle class, where I'm going to just make up a number: 30% of the black population was able to squeeze through that crack. and they were able to integrate the military. They were able to get government jobs. They were able to go to college. They were able to do a lot of things that we were not able to do prior to affirmative action in any level of like real numbers. So that 30% got through the door. I'm a beneficiary of that, right? My parents were one of those ones who got through that crack. And so we lived a middle class experience where 60% of our people do not. Okay. And the other 10%, for those doing the math, they always had what they had. There's always black folks who have been sitting in there. They got their money, they got their positions, they got all that stuff. Everybody ain't poor, people. Uh, but that's the math there. But you're 100% right, Tracy, in that it was put in place as a portion, a very threadbare, half-assed portion of restorative justice for African Americans, but it was immediately leveraged for women and other minorities. So we got crowded out of our own. Well, some black women benefited, but you're black before you're a woman in America's eyes. So you still sitting there with us, right? So that's why I didn't separate it out. I did that on purpose because personally, I'm tired of black women always trying to separate themselves from black men and black men trying to separate themselves from black women, because America sees that you're black before they see anything else. We can't afford to be fighting against ourselves for meager rations when we need to be fighting for a larger spread together. So that's why I intentionally kind of did it that way. But that's where all this stuff is like coming in. So on the one hand, they struck down affirmative action. Let's just be real. It was always supposed to be a temporary thing. It always was going to go out similar to how they did Reconstruction, right? Great idea. Restorative justice. Well, I mean, slavery was like 300 years. We did this Reconstruction thing for like 20 years. Isn't that enough? All right. White backlash. We go into Jim Crow and all that stuff. Affirmative action. Well, affirmative action for like 30 years. Isn't that enough?
Yeah, we've
now they're trying to shut the door. You see what I'm saying? Like,
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody would start a restaurant chain and then say, you know what, we're not going to serve black people. It literally wouldn't shock me. And then they take it to this court and they be like, well, yeah, that's their restaurant. Yeah, they can do that.
Yeah, and it feeds off of what we were just talking about with what's happened with the LGBTQIA community, where it's trying to allow new ways to discriminate without it being called discrimination. So all this stuff is working together. These aren't one-offs. They're just finding who's the best target to patch this stuff all together. But here's my controversial point. I advocate for social and cultural separation anyway. So if they want to sit there and say you can't go to Harvard, I would really love for us to double down going to Howard. When they say that you can't go to North Carolina, Chapel Hill, I would really love for us to double down and go to North Carolina A&T. See, I would love for us to say, you know what, you reject us, but it's okay because we reject you too. You don't want us in your schools. We already have schools that pump out education and skills equal to or greater to what you have. We've gotten to the point where we built some of these.
The only problem I have with your problem is 300%. They'll just sue the black schools. They discriminated against me because I'm white. Look at this atrocity.
They will. But here's where that won't happen, though. They'll try it. It won't work. And the reason why it won't work is because there is no more inclusive group on this planet than the African American.
Yeah, we include anybody. Okay, we're like, oh, you want to be a part of it? Okay, here we go.
Thank you. So we might, if we could get to the point where we're like, you know what? You're discriminating against our athletes. You're discriminating against our scholars. You're discriminating against our community. Fine, we're going to take all of our young talent and we're going to send it to our schools where you're telling us to go anyway, right? Because you say don't go to your school, you're saying go to our school. So then we're going to shift and we're going to go there. Now, all your sports are going to be white and Asian. You put a college football team on that ain't got nothing but white and Asian football players on it. And then all the black players and the Latino players and the Samoan players are over here. playing at HBCUs, where you think that money gonna go? All
Yes.
right. So, and everybody can go to HBCU.
Yep, they sure
We
can.
don't have no problem with that.
We do not discriminate, unlike some sectors
Everybody
of
can go.
our population. But
We got white AKAs and white Kappas. We don't mind. We don't want to be you. We want the freedom to be us.
exactly.
And that means you can come be you here too. Just leave that bullshit over there.
I agree with
So
you
personally, it's like it's a mixed
100%.
bag, right? I feel for the people who won't be able to take the pathway that affirmative action does create, because I don't like when any doors are getting closed to opportunity. Um, but I would love to think that this is an opportunity for us to become engaged and double down on options that better serve us on a more intentional basis.
All right, Anna, do you have anything before I get to my controversial take?
I agree with a lot of what's been said, so go right ahead, Ron.
Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and jump into my controversial take. Um, you really didn't eliminate affirmative action. And I've felt this way for a long time now. So you didn't eliminate affirmative action. You eliminated tokenism. You affirmative action to me for many of the years have been nothing but a quota that any white industry, job, college, university, whatever, could just say, oh, we already have our minority, so sorry, we can't hire you. It's just a quota. It's just the best companies and the best universities out there pick the best quota. But that's all it still is you are a quota. We have lived up to what our responsibility was. You wanted us to put a minority in here, we have a minority in here.
And we ain't putting no more.
And you can leave us alone now till we have to replace that minority. So Tracy, I would disagree with you on that fact that it didn't help the black community. But sister, what I tell you, I must so slightly disagree with you. Again, it's nitpicking. All they really did was they picked the best of the best. They picked the
Yeah, they
best.
scavenged our best talent out
And then
and siphoned them out.
Yeah,
when
But
they
I
picked
mean,
us, when they pick us, then they don't pay us equal to what our white counterparts get. Oh, don't start me. Oh,
yeah,
don't
well, that's a
start
whole nother
none.
one right
so
Don't
there.
that's a
start
whole
none,
nother
because I'll
nother
start it. I'll
conversation.
start
That's
it
what I
up
mean.
in
That's
here.
why
Yeah, you
I
picked
am
a
not
black person, but
as
are they getting paid
mad
the same?
about this. I'm not as mad about
Yeah,
this as who other people are. I'm just not. If you look at the body of affirmative action, it helped 0.0001% of what it was supposed to be doing.
But I have to caution, for every one of the few who made it through that little door, each of those people, those were real benefits.
yeah, we're
Those are
not. Yeah,
still your black
Yeah.
scholars. Those are your black politicians. Those are your black business owners. Those are your black educators. So it
And
did
these,
help. You,
these,
you
those
can't.
are those are our black Supreme Court justices
yeah.
who agreed to
That's
eliminate this.
that's one dude. But what I'm saying is, he is a problem, and he ain't alone. There's more of them out there.
And
But
Candace Owens, thank you for using.
right, well, Candace, I was about to say something I really can't say. Um, But my
He's
point
trying to get us
is,
kicked off
He
YouTube.
really trying to get us kicked off this doggone station.
what I'm saying though is affirmative action did not operate as well as it should have, but
That's my point.
it was intentionally designed not to.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
but the benefits that did occur for us, even though they did not happen at the rate that they should have, I'm cautioning against the messaging that it was all bad, so who cares? That messaging is really bad because this is just the boulder coming down the hill. There's going to rip up a lot more stuff as it goes. And it's hard to get our people engaged on much of any damn thing. So, for look,
No, this is
it,
this is
it
what I'm
did
pushing.
good stuff, folks.
This
It
is what I'm
did.
pushing
This
back
is a
on. Is
big deal.
this is what I'm pushing back on, and this is what I'm trying to tell my people, our people. The conversation that me and you had last night. Stop taking crumbs and thinking it's the glory land.
Yep.
Stop doing that. When affirmative action came out, we should have been all over that saying, okay, great, this is not enough and we need more. We need more for it. What did we do when affirmative action came out? They see us now,
Didn't know.
and we left it at that for damn near years. No. And I'm telling you this, hold on, let me finish.
I
I'm
disagree with
telling
your
you this
assessment.
because I promise you, we have been in this country for so damn long. I promise you that something will replace this. And I guarantee you it's
How
going
you
to.
say that?
Let me finish. I'll tell you.
Go ahead, bro. I'm sorry, bro. I mean, it was a shocking statement.
It is. I'm a shocking person. Something
Really?
will replace this, but it will be another crumb because that's what they give us, and we don't fight back. We don't say give us more or what we should accept or what this should be of. Nope, we'll just let it go and go, we got something.
Something better than nothing.
Something is better than nothing and everything else. And if you don't believe me, I just did a whole damn show about it. I gave you 2 examples of some great things that the Supreme Court did. And then what did they do?
Pulled that rug so fast.
Hey, you're
But
happy?
the
So
things
let me
that the
go ahead and
Supreme
fuck
Court
up your existence from this point on.
the things that the Supreme Court did, they did for their own preservation, not ours. We gotta be careful how we splice these conversations. So yes, they did a few things, but they weren't about us. They weren't about black people. They weren't about queer people. They weren't about regular working class people. It was about protecting the judiciary. They didn't have any problem breaking down the Voters' Rights Act. So it's really important that as we tell the story, we splice it in a as accurately as we can. Because when you say they take this, but they'll give something else later, no, that is
Nope.
not how history works. It's not how this history has worked. Everything we've gotten, we had to fight to get those crumbs. There was a fight for every last crumb. Now, we should be
Demand.
fighting not for a crumb. We should not be fighting for a slice. We should not be fighting for a loaf. We should be fighting to own the bakery. We should be fighting to be able to be the captains of our destiny. And that's what we fight for. We fight for the big, and then what happens is the concession is the bullshit, right? But that bullshit was still more than you had. I'm not saying be happy with the bullshit. I'm saying acknowledge the bullshit was more than you had
Yeah, because you
and
know
keep
somebody.
fighting for what you're supposed to get. But my question to people, my challenge to us is if you want more, it will require more. it will require more effort, more danger, more risk. If you're not willing to up the ante on what level of effort you're going to put in, then you will see that alternate part, right?
Right.
So
That's true.
don't dismiss the crumbs, because there are people who paid with their blood for us to have those crumbs. My challenge, though, is if we want that bakery or if we just want a loaf, are we ready to do the things it's going to take, as long as it takes, to get it? And right now, I don't think we are. So we
No,
get
because
crumbs.
we've been
Maybe.
conditioned. We've really been conditioned, and that's by both parties. Well, we gave you a black president. What else you? Huh?
Yeah, you gave us hip hop month.
This is true, but that's why it's important for us to always remember that politics is just one tool in the
There's one,
toolbox.
but it's a major
It's
one,
just one.
especially since they're passing laws and drawing maps. How
Yes,
you gonna draw a map? You just gonna draw with black people? Oh no, you don't live there.
right.
Huh? What?
So politics is warfare without bloodshed.
Yep.
Okay? Politics is avoiding physical damage to affect change. That
Right.
means it's built on compromises, it's slow, it's just right? And then
Yep.
whoever controls the process controls most of the outcome. So it's just one tool.
Right.
The other tool, though, is, are you ready for open revolution and rebellion? Another tool is, are you willing to separate economically and socially so that they feel it in their pocketbook? Because you mess with somebody's money, they react a lot
Yeah, they're
faster
gonna
than
be
they do
like,
if you
oh
mess
wait a
with them
minute.
in the
I
polls,
mean, that's what the
right?
civil rights era did during the whole bus train phase. They're like, no, we'll walk.
But they did, and that's an excellent point that you just brought up. But it was a different time as well,
Right,
right?
but I'm
So
saying that
because of
example does work.
segregation, right? Because of segregation, and because how hamstrung they had us financially, we didn't have cars.
Right.
So we had to rely on the bus system. That's the most popular thing that we all can think of. We had to rely on the bus system. So when we said screw it, we will carpool wherever we got to go. We will walk
Yeah,
if
we'll
it means
walk.
I got to leave 2 hours early to get to work. It worked because we were taking from something that relied on us,
Yep.
right? So if we were going to do something similar to that in the today's method, I would call it a rolling boycott, right? Because you don't want to cripple your own people in order to make a point. But it'd be a rolling boycott, for example. So we would say, you know what? For 3 months, none of us, now you're never going to get 100%.
Nope.
Let's go ahead and
That's
put it
not
out
true.
there. But you're going to say, none of us, or if you can get organized and now you just have a really large group across the country, so all of them can see all of us, or none of us, are going to shop at Walmart or Amazon for 90 days. These are our demands. This is what we want to see out of this segment of the business sector, right? We want this kind of, we want a DEI, we want more people representative in your C-suite, we want whatever our demands
Yep.
are. We actually have demands, and we say for 90 days, we're not going to give you a penny in any of these two major companies. Now that means we're going to have to shift our money somewhere else, right? So now our money's
Yep.
going to go to, Target, or it's going to go to Dollar General, or it's going to go. So it's still going in. It's still going into a larger, white America's pocket. But that's not the point, because we're not at war with white America. We're at war with this political system. So you move the money over there for 90 days, because any company can survive 30 days of any boycott.
Yep.
Won't even notice it happen.
They be like, what happened?
90 days won't hurt these two companies that I named because they're so huge, but it will definitely get their attention. Then if you get your concessions, boom, you go back to what you were doing. If you don't get your concessions, you say, okay, so that was the first 90 days. We're going to flip the switch. We're not worried about them two. Now it's going to be Target. And you name 3 or 4 or 5 more, right? So you can go back to shopping at Walmart now because, they're usually in the communities where a lot of our people don't have a lot of options. So you can't keep hurting yourself to make a point. So, okay, you can go back there, but now we're going to target these.
Yeah.
You can do something like that, and that will harken back to what we did in the 50s. It'll get the attention that you're trying to do, and it'll go after the money. You can do that at the same time that you get with other people and you say, you know what, hey, all you third-party voters out there and you non-voters out there and stuff like that, let's get together and we can go and figure out what candidates specifically, or we'll float our own, can get some of the issues and advocate for some of the issues we're most passionate about, and we're only going to back them. And then push it that way. We got to hit it on so many
you got
things.
to go on one level. But I was just using that as an example of, you mess with people's money, they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
When that bonus check ain't coming,